But yeah, so you want to hit the freedom before the root happens. So both bomb 3 and bomb 4 get freedom here. The difference of the freedom being before the roots go out and after the roots go out is an ad spawns. So we want to be
if not before.
If not before. If we're late and we break the root as opposed to pre-immuning the root, we spawn an ad.
Right,
yep.
right.
So our goal will be to, except for the 2 people that get freedoms, everyone else stacks in. The vines spawn, and then you'll see everyone kind of airdrops, boom, 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 onto the vines, and they die really quickly. So the first couple of seconds of the fight are really just bait that first fire beam in a good spot, bring the boss over, handle the dispels, handle ideally 3 dispels before we stack in for roots, stack in, and our bomb people will land.
Do we need to DPS the roots at all, or will the bombs kill them?
They should generally kill them. There are some sets where we'll need to do damage. I think they do like 90-ish% of the root's health. So 10% needs to come from somewhere else.
So, okay. I mean,
Passive
that's
cleave
probably...
Passive cleave should just kind of get them.
Yeah, okay.
Demon Hunters, both Fell Barrage. That first set.
Yeah, I
that
think I was
alone should
reading.
clear.
I think I was reading some stuff where it was saying you don't really have that many full AoE build classes. It's like
Yeah,
No.
Demon Hunters and like Warlocks is like enough.
Yeah,
Right,
basically I'm just
between
asking is like,
Implosion-
do I
Go ahead.
even need to waste a Shadow Crash? And it sounds like the answer is no.
Generally, no. I think, yeah. Generally, no.
I have a question about our initial move.
Yeah. Just the L pattern here.
Yeah, that POV you just showed, it looked like they're kind of just sitting next to the fire, where last night we were going pretty far. So which one are we aiming for there?
So this we come out, the fire spawns, and then we come over as soon as the sunbeam comes out. If we look at this one from the top, they do the same thing. So the boss pulls over. This is the first leg of that. As soon as he turns into a moonkin and does the fire beam, they're going to move him away. So we come away from...
But they're like right next to it was my only thing. Because we were going really far.
Yeah. I think this, we don't want to over move. It's going to be kind of a personal comfort thing from an Artank's perspective, but less movement on that second set, assuming that we're able to dodge effectively, is going to be better.
It almost looks like they're moving less on purpose to make dodging the initial beams easier. Because they were basically, the first one they didn't have to move at all, right next to the fire, and then they just sidestepped the second.
Yeah, you should be able to generally sidestep each one. But yeah, we don't need to go like... I think yesterday we were going not just a short distance here away, but we were going like over here.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking, because if I was chasing the boss as melee, like I had to run out of the fire and then still chasing the boss. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I think minimizing movement will be good. The arrows here are less indicative of like actual distance and just more indicative of general direction. So less is more.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, so that's so far we've talked primarily about the dispels. The other thing that's going on is the bombs, and these happen at the same time. So we'll have the assigned bomb groups. We're going to continue with that just like we have it. We're intentionally running 8 melee so that we can always have 4 melee do the bombs, so that we don't run into any issues where somebody who has a dispel is supposed to be catching a flare bomb. So 6 feathers spawn. It's based, like we said, it's based on where the boss is looking. We'll generally be aiming to have the boss look away from the fire. So I know in the picture here, he's kind of facing down here. But it goes left to right. So if we look at our assigner sheet, whoever is the first in the assignment list should get the one closest to the fire, to the left of the boss, looking inward. So on the first set on Tuesday, I think that was Villainy. I think we're gonna move Demon Hunters to the second set just so that we can get that consistent Fel Barrage on the first routes. But it just goes left to right. So whoever was the first assignment goes there, second assignment, third, fourth, and he goes around the boss. So regardless of where he's facing, the anchor point is just the feather that's closest to the fire looking inward on the left. And I know Holy mentioned it yesterday, but you don't take damage from being inside of the Dispel circle. To clarify what we mean with that, this big circle on the ground, when the Dispel happens, you don't take damage if you're standing in this circle. You only take damage if you're standing in the fire after the fact. So it's okay for people to be inside of this big circle if they need to pick up a feather, and it's even okay to toe into the fire for a moment to pick up a feather. If you're going to do that, you should probably pop a small personal. But that Dispel happens, and you see health bars don't even move. The only person who...
You're super blurry again. Give it a second.
Okay. The only person who takes damage is the person who got dispelled because they were standing in the fire when the dispel happens.
Okay.
So it's okay to step back in as those feathers are spawning. And you'll see that the feather spawn lines up with... So here come the feathers. The feathers spawn at the same time that this dispel is here. So it's safe to pick up the feather right under the bomb timers here. This person isn't going to take damage when this dispel goes off. So you see they pick up 4 feathers here. They'll fly up. You'll see 4 people get on mounts. Up they go. You can see them up there. And then a second later, crash, 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 crash. And they die. So it's just getting comfortable with that movement. It'll take us, in the same way that we got randomly one-shot a bunch to dispels, we'll get randomly one-shot a bunch to not catching flare bombs. In addition to having an assigned feather, you also have an assigned bomb. Holy found some potential weak aura tech that will be integrating into the pack so that it's easier to tell which bomb you're assigned to as you're hoofing it over to play catch. Anyone have any questions on feathers? I know we're spending more time on the first few sets because we have to explain generally how the mechanics work. Okay. So we just do the same thing again, right? After the dispel, he'll spawn a beam where he stood. He'll spawn another beam shortly thereafter. So beam happens, we move. Beam happens, we move. We then get another root set. We want to get over the hump of this root set as fast as possible. So we're not going to do that with damage. We're going to do that with root breaks. So this is the only set where you should be intentionally using your root break. Disengage, gnome, racial, sprint, spirit walk, whatever it is. This is the set where you should be intentionally using your root break. For those people who just don't have root breaks, namely priests and evokers, you guys will have assigned freedoms. But we're gonna spawn a lot of treants. We need to kill the treants quickly. The benefit of spawning treants and not killing the roots is the roots come out while the fire beam lines are all over the fucking place. So it just gets real complicated real quick. So we want to break out, CC the ads, and dodge beams, because we'll have a lot of fire coming out at that point. And that's at about the 50-second mark, and we'll be verbaling that as well. We want to kill those trees, and then the same triple overlap that happened before happens again, just on the different side of the platform. So we ping pong around the platform. We're going to end up over here. We do dispels the same way. Dispels go around the edge of the room. We continue to work clockwise from number 1. Same thing. This was 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4. And we do the same thing again. After this set, the boss spawns a fire beam much faster than the previous set. So once your route is broken, you will gateway out of the fire set. So we'll have a gateway down, leading us away from the new fire that you'll just take once your route is broken. You don't want to take, I believe, and I'm not sure if this is fixed yet, I believe you can take the gateway while rooted and it counts as a route break. We don't want to do that because we'll spawn trees right after we kill a bunch of trees. So just make sure that you're taking the gate to get away from the boss. As soon as the boss makes this last beam, he's going to fly up in the air and be unattackable. So you don't have to worry about like taking the gateway and using big movement to get back on the boss as a melee. He's just going to fly away. So again, same thing. This is the same overlap. Ranged, you're managing dispels. Melee, you're managing bombs, but it all happens in that same like 20-second window, from 1 minute to 125. So it's the same triple overlap. And that's the end of the phase. Then we just fly on our merry way. So putting it all together, if we resume from where we were just talking about positioning real quick, and we'll send this POV out, but you're doing the same thing again. So this is the route set that everyone is gonna break. Everyone breaks. You see there's a billion treants, but everyone can move to dodge this fire, which is the important part because we need to dodge both the ground swirlies and the other moving pieces. So those trees get AoE down, but we have the freedom to dodge. We do the exact same triple overlap that we already learned. There's just different people flying up in the air, and very likely different people will have bombs. You see, as soon as they finish that set, they take the gateway, and then the boss is going to fly up and be immune. So at this point, we're going to loosely spread out in the middle of the platform, pick up a feather, get on our mount, and we go on our merry way. And that is P1. Before we talk about P2, does anyone have any questions about P1?
I think I know that it's in the sheet. Am I freedoming myself on that? We have to. No, it's bubble, right? I'm freedoming.
I think you
else.
bubble it. I think you pre-bubble.
Right. Okay. I'm freedoming somebody else. Right.
Yeah, I think you're freedoming either Codex or myself. But
I can break
it should
with
all be
dispersion.
In the note. You can break with dispersion? Okay.
I mean, obviously only once every 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes, but
yeah, that should be the only set where it's intentional breaking. Sorry, Holy, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. I was just gonna say, I had it set up for Tuesday. I don't know if it would be any different, but we should have enough to break Priest Evoker and 2 Demon Hunters, and then have a spare for. I think I don't have Jonesy's assigned anyway.
Yeah, it's Tigers less than 3 freedoms. We don't have Master's Call assigned yet. But yeah, we have a lot. With our current comp, we have a lot of freedoms, which is nice. Okay, so that's the end of P1. P2, instead of the fire beam mechanic, we get the seeds. So in P1...
before you start, is there any specific way we're doing the movement from platform 1 to 2? Like, I know there were some assignments for that.
Yes. So, great question, Bidbid. There will be... think of it as 3 lanes, left, middle, and right. There will be 3 people, pardon me, assigned to like left and middle, and then the whole raid will go right. And on the second one, the whole raid will go up the middle. So there's people who are going to be flying out on the wings to pick up the balls. Everyone else is just beelining it directly to the platform. But it'll be apparent which direction you're supposed to go. So if you look at their mini-map here, you'll see they have kind of 3 distinct clusters. They have this big group on the right, and then they have a couple people splitting off to get these orbs in the middle, and a couple people splitting off to get the orbs on the left. But the majority of the raid on the first set will be moving along the right side here as a group to beat the boss to the next platform. And you should still end up with the full 10 stacks. It's a great question. But again, that'll be in the note, and we'll update that as our comp shifts. Pull over pull. Okay, P2. So P1, we intentionally kept all the fire on the edge. In P2, that thinking goes out the window. No more. The first fire still goes on the edge, and we get the same triple overlap again, right? There's a theme here of execute the triple overlap well. Ranged will handle dispels, melee will handle feathers, and everyone else is dealing with the roots and making sure they're stacking in. All right, this is gonna be throughout the whole fight. We're doing this. So melee is getting their feathers, they're getting their bombs, and then they're crashing into the boss and the roots. And we again have freedoms assigned to numbers 3 and 4 here. So Ferris and Vest, I think you guys are the majority of those assigned freedoms, so it's just getting comfortable knowing that they're coming. Unlike in P2, where we moved around the outside of the room and continued to drop fire on the outside, we'll have, and this is not what our pattern will be. We'll have like a group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4 split. I'll share a version of this with our specific assignments in the Tindral channel. But we have to soak 1 seed each. There are 20 seeds. There are 20 of us. Everyone needs to soak exactly 1 seed. If you soak 2 seeds, rather than crushing the seed, you will immediately spawn a tree. So it's very important that we don't use big, crazy movement here, that we move out, intentionally soak our seed, and move back in. If we are all over the place using like blanks or rolls or like heroic leaps, you name it, willy-nilly, it's very likely that we're gonna just double soak a bunch of these and spawn trees. Spawning a tree is just a wipe, much more so than it was in heroic, where you could kind of heal through it for a little bit. I'm gonna think it's just a wipe. So to keep the seeds manageable, we'll spawn the fire in a certain pattern. So the first 2 just kind of layer on top of each other in this U shape, similar to what we did in P1. And we again do the same thing, where we do dispels into seeds, into roots. We want to, after you soak this seed set, you want to make sure you're getting in 4 roots. The big difference here is after that set, rather than make another U, we intentionally split the dispels. So 1 and 2 go to the east side of the boss. 3 and 4 go to the west side of the boss. So Kez and Alk, you guys will be the evoker and the priest in this picture. You guys will be on the east side near the old fire for this dispel. The reason that we make this fun U shape is so that we can control how the last set of seeds gets baited. If we just made another little U, we could end up with seeds on the outside of the room. By making this shape and keeping the box inside of his little fire pen, we can increase the likelihood that there aren't weird spawns of the seeds. So again, what was previously the pattern where we had 1, 2, 3, 4, it's very similar. It's just that 4 is rotated back into this little nook. So where P1 was all about big movement, getting around the fire, making sure that we're dodging. P2, we still have to do dodging, and we still have to do the roots and dispels, but there's not as much like big movement around the outer rim of the circle. Once we get the boss to the edge the first time, it's mostly just managing seeds. So putting that into practice here, this group lusted. Some people, and it's not uncommon, are lusting on this first supernova. We'll have to take a look at what our damage profile looks like, but it's a consistency thing. If you're getting out of P1 cleanly, it's sometimes worse to just lust here. So again, they take the boss to the edge. The first set of dispels is going to come out. The dispels happen. 1, 2, 3, 4. The feathers spawn. Melee get their feathers. Up they go. They're catching bombs. The vines stack in. It's the same thing that we've already done. But then immediately after this, seeds spawn. Everyone collects exactly 1 seed. And then you go back to doing what you're doing. Same thing again. Dispels come out. We put it in the exact same U semicircle. The raid is going to stack up again for the roots. You're going to soak a seed and then stack in. So it's seeds, then stack. This set's a little bit spicy. We may end up having to use root breaks. So you see they actually spawned 2 treants here. This is where we dispel on the edges. So you make the big U shape. This overlaps with feathers spawning. With this pattern, just to pause here briefly, something that we didn't talk about for the melee, it's much more likely that one of your feathers, like multiple feathers, will be in fire. So be ready to press a small personal and step into the fire to pick up your feather. Everyone else is stacking up. Those people are on their mounts, catching bombs. They're going to crash into the vines. And then we do 1 more seed soak. We get everyone soaks exactly 1 seed, so there's no room for people to not go out and soak. You have to soak your specific seed. Intermission 2 comes, and we're on to P2. Same thing again, you'll have an assigned flight path. So as you're flying through on this set, the raid predominantly flies down the middle as opposed to going down the right lane. And then we're transitioning over to P3. Anybody have any questions on P2? Anything to add?
I don't know. It kind of feels like P2 is much easier than P1.
It's a different kind of difficulty, right? It's everyone being able to quickly react and find their seed. The seed positions aren't fixed; they're random based on. It's like pseudo random in a same area. So you aren't always going to go to the exact same spot to get your seed. You have to be able to adjust, pull over, pull to figure out which seed is yours and not run through 2. It's a different kind of difficulty.
Are the phases time or health percent?
Both. The reason that people are lusting in P2 is so that they can force a push into P3 with exactly the number of seeds. So I think otherwise it's possible to get 1 additional seed set. So depending on where our damage is at, we may lust P2 versus P3. It just depends. Okay. On to P3. So P3, it's just put the other 2 phases together, right? You have the same root overlap. The only difference is rather than overlap directly with dispels at the start, it overlaps with seeds. And sunbeams. So the boss will quickly go sunbeam, or it will quickly go roots, flare bomb, sunbeam, seeds. So we have to be on point with picking up our flare bombs, crashing into the group, making sure we're stacked up, and that those are dying. It's very important that the roots all die before the sunbeam spawns, or we die. Immediately after he does the sunbeam, he'll do seeds. This is one of the hardest overlaps of the fight because you're dodging and you have a limited amount of time to pick up your seed. So we need to spread out, and some people will have to do like 5 layers of dodging to get to the innermost seeds near the boss. Okay? This one's a little chaotic. P3 is all about tough overlaps. Then we get a dispel set. So rather than the triple overlap that we're used to, the boss delays the dispels and does his 2 form mechanics first. After the form mechanics, we get the dispel set. We go to the assigned soak spots. We make sure we're getting them on the edge of the room. We then get, so this is not the exact same time. It's not an overlap. After the dispel, while the fire is on the ground, we'll get a set of feathers and flare bombs. There may be like a 2 to 3 second overlap, but it's not as tight as some of the other sets. So we do the same thing that we've done already. Then we get a normal, or what I'll call a normal seed set. It's the exact same thing we did in P2, the exact same sections. There shouldn't be anything new to learn there. It's just getting used to generally where you're positioned. We then have a similar overlap to what we did in P1. But this one is a little bit more complicated. We're still going to use a gateway though. Dispels make a slightly different shape as well. So Kez and Alk, you guys will be in a very similar spot to where you were at the start of P2 and on the first dispel set, just stepping forward. But dispels 3 and 4 will happen later, as we're dodging the sunbeam. So you want to freedom number 2, and then AoE down everyone else because the roots happen in the middle of the freedom. So healers, it's your own root break except for disc priests because you guys get a freedom. Number 2 also gets a freedom. And once 1 and 2 are dispelled, we run away. Once the sunbeam has happened, because we have to stack in, bombs 3 and 4 will stack in with the raid. So it's super important that they die. Once the roots are broken and the sunbeams are spawning, only the people with the debuff will take the gateway out. Everyone else is just going to run away, right, out and back. But 3 and 4 will take the gate and they'll get dispelled over here. This is something that we haven't talked about a lot. When you're dodging the sunbeams, it's generally easiest in the same way that it was with Rashok to dodge into the epicenter of where the beam set is coming from. So once you dodge the first set, you want to dodge the second wave by going back towards where the boss is, underneath where he just spawned fire, because the fire doesn't persist from the sunbeam. Same thing. We get another root set and a feather set overlap into seeds. So it's the same thing again, right? Roots and feathers into seeds. This is going to be once the seeds go out, or after the seeds, pardon me, we get another dispel set. So it's the same pattern that we had at the start of this phase, right? Same set to the same set again. We soak the seeds, and then we are into a dispel set. This is one that I believe does not overlap with a flare bomb. So this is a set where we need to Giga AoE blast the roots, and we're entirely reliant on our own power. We don't want to spawn trees because it's very likely at this far into the fight with everything else overlapping, the trees will just kill us. It's generally safer to just kill the vines in the same way that we have historically on Heroic. And there's a quote unquote timer on this, because if he casts the Starfall or whatever it is, and you're still rooted in one, you just die. So this is the only set that we have to kill from 100 to 0 entirely on our own power. Boss will do a Sunbeam. We'll run away. We'll do another root set with flare bombs. Those break. We do another Seeds. We do one last Dispel. And then the fight's over. And it's a tight damage check.
There's
a lot
too
going on
much.
in
Easy.
P3. There's a lot going on in P3, and I know I
Holy
zoomed through
crap.
that. This is a dance, and I was saying this last night after raid. This is a dance that is gonna feel a lot like just dance practice. We're gonna spend 10 pulls on one mechanic overlap. We'll learn it. We'll then have to go spend 10 pulls on the next mechanic overlap. This is a fight that it's very common to have major regression on when we make comp changes. So because of that, we're going to be rotating ranged especially in and out for the first couple of nights here, just so that everyone can see the dispels and get used to how that works. So this is the start of P3. This is generally pots. So you pot on pull and you pot here. Lust is either here or at the P2 supernova. It seems more common on recent kills to do the P2 supernova. So again, no dispels, but the vines come out. People go up, catch their flare bombs, and crash down into the group. We then are going to get a seed set in the fire. So you see, you have to move into the fire to soak your seeds, right? Once you've soaked, shortly after this, you're going to get a dispel and a mushroom. So the mushrooms comes out. Here come the dispels. This set goes along the rim, just like we saw. We come back in. We're going to get another seed set. And this one, again, is with feathers. So seeds plus feathers. Melee collect their feathers. Off they go to catch their bombs. Everyone else makes sure they're stacked in. The people crash down, kill the vines. And we're soaking immediately after this. We're coming up on another set of dispels, and this is the tough overlap where bombs 3 and 4 will have to gate. So seeds come out. We have to kill these seeds. Whoever is number 2 gets a freedom. I just want to make sure, because we're still killing the seeds when these bombs spawn, because this is another one that we have to kill under our own power. So you see, as soon as the person number 2 gets identified, they call for a freedom. They get their freedom. That one gets out for dispel. Numbers 3 and 4 will either gateway out or walk out. The mage walked out, the hunter gated. It just depends. You dodge the fire. And you'll see that it's not uncommon to have a couple of treants just kind of running amok at this phase. You want to just kill them. The treants do pulsing damage around them, so you can't leave them up for super long. This is another root and feather set, so we don't have to damage these. The flare bombs will just kill them. You go soak your seed, just 1, not 2. And then you do your dispels. This dispel set, they dispelled the first one a little bit early. It would ideally be, I'm not sure if you guys can see my cursor, but it would ideally be over here. So not right in the middle, but just tucked over. It's not going to make a huge difference in the long run. It just makes it harder for whoever's number 2 to get out. You layer this set near the old one, and then you stack back in for another root set. This is a root set where some people will just break passively with the cooldowns that they're pressing. I think Demon Hunter meta and a couple other things are up in that window, which is why you see a few treants spawning. But then you're going to get a set of flare bomb catches with another set of roots. This is the set where you just want to have the boss dead as this is going on. You see they don't even pick up the feathers because they were able to root themselves in a way where they could dodge fire, and they're just going to burn the boss. So there's a lot that goes on there in terms of everything coming together. This dance, the P3 dance especially, is going to take us quite a while. So I think as long as we're coming in with a positioning first, add the damage later mindset on this fight, I think we're going to have a good time. I think if we're over focused on DPS and greeting at the beginning of our progression, we're going to end up having a really bad time and frequent regression. So my general request, me imploring the team here is let's make sure that we're coming in ready to do the dance first and do damage second. But that's pretty much it. We zoomed through this. We're going to share all of the stuff that we posted, the POV, we'll have an updated week order pack out ahead of raid tomorrow. My goal is to get that out tonight. And we'll also, both of the raid plans that we've talked through in the time state are in the Tindral channel. Pause though. Does anyone have questions, comments, concerns, requests? Favorite colors?
I'm excited for them to announce some nerfs here.
I called it.
Yeah.
Am I gonna be feeding them anyone during this? Is that like assigned anywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll share it.
Okay.
Yes, Zarnik.
It'll probably be Rev, and as long as you have the self freedom talent too.
Yeah, we'll have that.
I think the only time yours should be needed is just at 50 seconds.
It's
Yeah,
at 50, and then
Farrah should be able to grab the
it's at
all
50,
the other ones.
and then in the spooky overlap one in P3, in the one where you have to gate in this one.
Yeah. Is that gonna be the same person every time, or?
It'll be whoever has bomb 2.
Okay.
Which it'll only ever be a ranged player, so it should be a small population. Sorry,
That one should be fine. Then I think you just move it up, right? Unless the timing is wrong. Because then whoever, instead of dispelling 3 and 4, you Pharaohs would grab Alk, Vest would grab 2, Kez would just shapeshift.
Right.
So if we need one for 3 and 4, then
but it depends.
I can
It depends on how fast we kill the roots, because this root kill is entirely under our own power. So we could either bite the bullet and say Zarnik always gets 2, or just say Vess always gets 2, and then Zarnik gets 3 as a backstop if we're slow on the root kill. I think if it's likely that we may need one on this set. I think Holy, you're right. It's not a 100%.
I think it's safe.
It's not a 100% set. Yeah.
I had one thing I could think of to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was one thing I think I just shared briefly, but the weak aura has a little bit of logic to it. Who picks 1 to 4? So
Yes.
one is always going to be the healer. And I'll just maybe share the picture I had in raid chat. But it was just the idea of if you want to get used to your positioning of where you may be, you can know that you're never going to be 1, and if you're not a hunter and a mage, you're going to be 2 or 3. So hunter and mage would almost always be the last dispels. But I'll share a little picture in raid chat, and it might make more sense.
This guy. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the one you just shared there. Yeah. Obviously, there's a chance where
it picks all 3 of
the
these
warlock,
people,
evoker,
right?
and priest get picked, right? So then that would, but or in a case where a hunter and a mage and a warlock get picked, but in that case, you know you're either going to be like, if you kind of follow this, I think you'll be safer or in position to where your dispel may be, and that stays true for the entire fight, not just this one set that I'm showing here.
Yeah, that's right. Like in the POV they were watching, it was an evoker POV, and when they got a bomb, they only ever got bomb 2. And it was more common than not that the hunter, the mage would be bomb 3 or 4, or the warlock. It just depends. So depending on the comp, it should be fairly reliable for which bomb you get within like plus minus 1 bomb. like it's possible that the mage gets 4 or 3, but the mage can't get 2. So it's something to get used to. If we play 2 mages, the second mage just is the hunter in that instance.
I think mostly the reason for that too is that if you absolutely have to break your route because there's a beam flying over you or for whatever reason, you can blink or disengage. Yeah.
Yep. That's why. Yep. We kept it under an hour, which was my goal. Anyone else questions while we're talking about it here before we wrap?
When melee get their feathers, are the bombs soaked static for the whole fight?
So there are differences between P1 and P2 in terms of where the bombs are placed. They spawn. Here, let me open this sheet quick. Yeah. Give me 1 second here. So in P1, it's always north, south, east, west, and those should be static. So like your P1 bomb set will always be the same every time we pull the boss. So as an example, with the assignments that we have here, we go left to right, bottom up. I think some of this is going to shift. I think Eland, you're going to come into the first group, and Villainy is going to come into the second group, just for Demon Hunter consistency. And then this becomes our pattern as we go forward. Which would then mean, by necessity, Eland, that you and Villainy switch down here. But so, in this pattern, you would always get the west bomb in P1, and in P2, you would always get the southwest bomb. So it just rotates 45 degrees between phases.
Okay. And is P3 the same as P2?
I believe so, yes. We also have, we're cooking up some tech for a map so that it becomes apparent like which bomb set it is and like which one you should be going to.
Ooh, that's helpful.
Yeah.
This foot's gonna make me hate melee.
This fight's gonna make everyone hate every roll.
Yeah, it's gonna be no fun across the board. But yeah, so there are a couple things, weak auras, that you should see different headed into tomorrow. This is a fight where we'll likely have a couple of different versions of weak aura refreshes, like not pull over pull necessarily, but potentially over break and definitely night over night. So just make sure you're keeping up to date on the weak aura pack before each raid. All right, that's all I had. I'm gonna get some weak aura stuff set up, but